Right, if everyone would be quiet. Oh, you already are. Very good morning to you. Welcome to the 2025 Queensland Volunteering Conference. Apologies for the late start, particularly those of you who are watching online. Look, we're in Brisbane and it's raining. What can I say? People in Brisbane don't do rain. Also, that clicker's not working. And now it is. So I don't know whether I did that or whether someone overrode that. Okay. So my name is Spencer Howson and I'm going to be your MC for the next couple of days. I'll introduce myself properly in a moment, but we are gathered here in Meanjin, Brisbane on Turrbal and Yagara land. And online, you join us from all over Australia and perhaps even beyond. We collectively acknowledge the traditional custodians of land, sea and community throughout Australia, and we pay respect to First Nations elders past and present. We recognise that community giving has been taking place in First Nations communities for tens of thousands of years, and we celebrate the contributions of the first volunteers. We support the power of volunteering and community giving to foster reconciliation. So, my name is Spencer Howson, and I'm just going to be very, very quick. Some of you will know me from the radio. I guess I'm best known for my 25 years presenting at ABC Radio, particularly the breakfast show in Brisbane. These days my focus is my PhD, and I'm on the radio 1 day a week. And I can tell you 1 day a week getting up at 3:30 in the morning is much nicer than 5 days a week getting up at 3:30 in the morning. My PhD is investigating the value of local radio to communities, particularly in regional Australia. And one of the things that's happening in the media is it's contracting. We're seeing local newspapers closing. We're seeing a lot more networking of radio and television. And it's my belief that it's going to fall on community media, whether it be community radio or hyper-local publications or social media, to take on the baton and be the town hall of local communities. And of course, all of that community media is run by volunteers. And I know we've got delegates from 4ZZZ and from Wild Horse FM in Yarraman joining us for these 2 days. I also believe that local radio and the existence of local media in general is critical in building pride in a town or region and teaching people to be good citizens. And that includes volunteering. So if we lose local media, we lose a very important, a very powerful force in encouraging people to volunteer. So you can see how I'm very interested to be here for these next couple of days. Couple of housekeeping notes. The restrooms are located on this level across the way from this auditorium. If you need to leave the auditorium during a session, though, we ask that you do it through the rear door, which is at the top of the stairs up there, which might confuse you. It confused me because it then puts you on level 3. Then you come down to level 2 and you use the toilet. Anyway, you'll get the idea. The fire exits are located on each side of the stage and also through that rear door of the auditorium. In the event of an emergency, the assembly point is Maywar Green and Stanley Place, located at the front of the Gallery of Modern Art. Don't worry, fire wardens will direct you to the assembly point once you've exited the building. The State Library of Queensland, our hosts today, is a smoke-free venue. If you feel the need, please exit the building via reception on level 1 and proceed at least 4 metres from the front of the building to light up. There is free guest Wi-Fi available. The network is SLQ wireless and no password is required. As many Brisbane University students will tell you, this is a very popular place to use the Wi-Fi. Throughout the conference over the next couple of days, please continue the conversations on social media using the hashtag QVC2025, which you'll see on the slides throughout the event. Volunteering Queensland is delighted to have as its patron the Governor of Queensland, Her Excellency, the Honourable Dr. Jeanette Young, AC, PSM. Her Excellency was unable to join us today, but we are delighted to be able to share this personal message.
Hello, I'm recording this message to you all from Government House on the lands of the Turrbal and Yagara people, and I pay my respects to their elders past and present and to the traditional owners of lands across Queensland. It's a true honour to address you today, albeit virtually, as patron of Volunteering Queensland, and I want to express my deepest appreciation for the incredible work you all do in the volunteering sector. Volunteers are the heartbeat of Queensland's communities, whether supporting a local charity, providing relief during disasters, or inspiring the next generation of change makers. Your dedication makes an immeasurable impact. This important conference provides the perfect opportunity to reflect on the vital role of volunteers in our state and look towards the future. One of the most exciting areas of focus, and this is reflected in your program, is the engagement of young people, which, as you well know, is essential for the sustainability of volunteering. I believe there is much more we can do to harness the energy, creativity and enthusiasm of our younger generations, and this is a challenge I'm sure you'll go some way to exploring at this conference. Another key area I'm passionate about is ensuring that we foster a sense of belonging and well-being for every volunteer. Volunteering should not just be about giving, it should also be a source of personal growth and fulfilment. Volunteering Queensland's efforts to create a culture of appreciation have helped amplify the voice of volunteers in our state. And I encourage you all to continue to recognise and thank those who give their time and energy so freely. In closing, I want to thank each of you for your ongoing commitment to volunteering. The work you do is shaping a stronger, more resilient Queensland, and your presence at this conference reaffirms your dedication to our state, your communities and each other. May you continue to inspire, uplift and create a lasting impact for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Now, we are honoured to have with us today the Minister for Local Government and Water and Minister for Fire, Disaster Recovery and Volunteers, the Honourable Anne Leahy MP, who will now officially open the conference. Please join me in welcoming Minister Leahy.
Thank you very much, Spencer. And can I say I would love to talk to you about your PhD, being someone who has lost about 6 newspapers and only a few radio stations left. So I'd firstly today like to acknowledge CEO Jane Hedger, who is here with us from Volunteering Queensland, members, councillors, distinguished guests, and the most important people in the room, the volunteers who are here today. It is a privilege to be here today to acknowledge the individuals who truly are the backbone of our communities, you, the volunteers. As the Minister for Volunteers, I've witnessed the invaluable work that the volunteering sector does for Queensland firsthand in these last few months. Volunteers make a vital contribution to the social, economic communities across Queensland. Your dedication and passion reminds us of the power of community and the strength we gain when we come together for that common purpose. We really can't express just how important the sector is to keeping Queensland running. This conference is an important opportunity for us all to recognise you, the immense value that you bring and the contribution that you make to our communities right across this state. Many organisations across Queensland rely on volunteers to survive. It's you who keep our school P&Cs running, who care for animals looking for their forever homes, who make up our rural fire service, who keep our regional and remote communities safe. It is you who run the Meals on Wheels, and importantly, you who also prepare the strawberry ice creams at the Ekka, supporting our youth as they transition to their school years to adulthood. And recently we have just seen how important this sector is when we're faced with natural disasters. And I was just talking with Brad Cooper from Volunteers Gold Coast about some of the amazing work that they did during ex-tropical cyclone Alfred. Queenslanders are no strangers to floods and fire, and we know how disaster recovery takes the work of many. Thousands of generous volunteers are always keen to get in and lend a hand to help their local community. From the SES to the rural fireys responding to calls, or the help that a Justice of the Peace may give to somebody who has lost their documents, their ID documents, due to a flood or a fire. From the Ute Army loading the waste for the tip and those offering emotional support to impacted residents and business owners. And just this week I was with Red Cross, who are very busy with their volunteers, providing a lot of that emotional support to people who've been flood impacted. It's these people who remind us of the community spirit that is so needed at that time. Our volunteers play a crucial role in the response and recovery efforts during natural disasters. Your importance cannot be overstated. You provide essential support that governments and emergency services may not always be able to do alone. You fill the gaps by offering your precious time and skills and energy to help reach those who need it most. You help bring a sense of hope and resilience to communities by contributing the restoration of normalness. Ultimately, our volunteers' selfless work and passion to make the difference is the cornerstone of any effective disaster response and recovery. And we want to make sure that anyone who has that passion to make a difference has every opportunity to become a volunteer. I've been engaging with volunteers and volunteer organisations, and they're telling me that there are a range of obstacles to stopping them from volunteering. Volunteers are passionate people who give selflessly of their time for their communities, but over the past 3 years, volunteering participation has fallen by more than 10%, and that concerns us as a state government. This in turn impacts on many community organisations' ability to deliver for Queenslanders and respond in times of emergency, and of course for those who rely on the support of volunteers during these times. And that is why the Christodoulou government established a parliamentary inquiry into volunteers, which the inquiry delivers on a key commitment from the government's 100-day plan and will deliver a lifeline to the sector. Volunteering is very important to us, and that is why it is in our 100-day plan. Supporting our volunteers' parliamentary inquiry, which is currently underway, will focus on 5 key areas: the restrictions on volunteering caused by legislation and regulation, the current government support for the sector and the opportunities for improvement, the barriers to volunteering for non-volunteers, the current restrictions adversely limiting active volunteers, and the opportunities for diversification of the volunteer workforce. The parliamentary inquiry is the first step to providing more support to Queenslanders who want to volunteer. To put it simply, we are committed to examining the valuable contributions of the state's volunteer sector, while identifying the key challenges, removing the barriers and creating pathways to volunteering. The inquiry is the first step towards that. So the Local Government, Small Business and Customer Service Parliamentary Committee has been tasked with delivering that report to Government by September 2025. Public contributions to the inquiry are vital, and we have the information that we need to boost this vital sector. The experiences of volunteers, people just like you, on the front line need to be heard, and the barriers they face need to be addressed so we can address that decline in volunteering numbers. I'm quite overwhelmed that over 542 written submissions have been received by the parliamentary inquiry. That is outstanding. And we expect this number to increase as they work to upload more of those submissions to the parliamentary website. Over the next few months, my department will review and analyse all of these submissions, and I'm really interested in working with you to make it easier for you and encourage more people like you to get into volunteering. Next week will mark the beginning of the inquiry's public hearings. Unfortunately, the Gold Coast hearing that was scheduled earlier this month has been postponed due to the weather, but I think you will probably understand that. We certainly weren't going to keep you from the important work that you do on the Gold Coast at the time when your communities were most in need. The hearings will kick off next week in Dalby and Toowoomba, and also continue to Gympie, the Sunshine Coast and Brisbane for the remainder of the week. And I will be encouraging the committee to make sure they get to some of the far-flung parts of our state as well, because I know that volunteers in those areas, in those regional areas where we have smaller communities, often it's the volunteers who are doing everything for the P&C, the Race Club, the Show Society, and a number of other things as well. I would encourage you, if you are able, to attend the hearings and provide your feedback on how we can make it easier for you to continue the important work that you do. You can register to attend these hearings at the Queensland Parliament website. And it's a very simple process. You just register and say, look, I wish to attend and to speak to the committee. You don't have to have made a submission to do that. I want people to know that the Christodoulou government sees you and cares about you. We understand just how important you are to our state. Our government wants to investigate the issues and the obstacles you are facing so we can address them and reverse that decline in volunteering numbers. We want to ensure that you have the resources you need to keep doing what you do best. We want to encourage more Queenslanders to join you. I look forward to working with you, and Jane and I are just about on speed dial to each other, but I look forward to working with you as the Queensland volunteering sector continues to thrive. We are listening to the voices of volunteers at the front line who are crucial to finding a better way forward. And I do want to thank you very much for the opportunity to be here with you at your conference and to give a keynote address. And I wish you great success over the coming days. But if I can leave you with one message, the Christodoulou government cares about Queensland's volunteers. Thank you.
Minister, thank you so much for those very kind words, and thank you for your advocacy for so long over the last 8 years or so. The Minister has been a very, very strong supporter of Volunteering Queensland and of the volunteering sector, and we were absolutely delighted to have you as our incoming Minister, and very fitting that you're the first Minister for Volunteers in Queensland. So thank you so much for your words. And thank you all for being here today. It's so exciting to see all of those people that we talk to over the phone, that we're managing projects with, to see you all in the room. I don't think there has ever been a more exciting time to be in volunteering in Queensland. I know we're facing declining volunteer rates. I know it's getting harder to recruit volunteers, harder to keep volunteers. And I know that change is difficult for all of us. And as a sector, we are having to lean into to change the way we recruit people, to change the way we manage volunteers, to change the way we structure volunteering opportunities. And I would like to challenge you over the next 2 days to listen to the speakers, to think about the way you do things, and to think about where we can change and grow and how we can adapt to the challenges that will only increase into the future. I think one of the things that I'm most excited about with the inquiry is the opportunity for us to really put some recognition and structure into the volunteering sector. The State of Volunteering report showed that sector is worth $30 billion in social and economic value to the economy of Queensland every year. That's $30 billion. Tourism is $34.7 billion. Now, if we're facing a 10% decline in volunteering, that's $3 billion a year lost out of the Queensland economy. And that cost is being borne by governments and communities. In any other sector, this would be a crisis. What I think is our exciting opportunity in that crisis to finally have a recognition of the value of this sector, and for us to be able to now really and truly put systems and policies and practice into place to make it easier for you to now work as volunteer managers in volunteer involving organisations, and ultimately for you all, because we are, most of us in some way, shape or form, all volunteers. 2.8 million Queenslanders volunteer. 2.4 million Queenslanders work. We are an incredibly giving community. We don't want that to change. We think Queensland's the greatest state, and I know now that after we have come out the other side of the inquiry and we implement all of these exciting things that I hope the inquiry will come up with, I think we're going to absolutely be the greatest state for volunteering. We're already the greatest state for volunteers. Let's put some structure around that and make us the greatest state for volunteering. Thank you so much for being here today. Please take the opportunity to lean in and find some exciting new ways of doing things. Have a look at, speak to the speakers on the program, network with each other, and of course after the conference, maybe Wednesday, Thursday next week, give my poor staff a break, come back to us and start talking about some of your ideas and things that are gelling for you. Quick little thank you to my amazing staff in the room, in staff and volunteers in all their red shirts. If you have any problems at all today, please make sure you make yourself known to them. But have the very best time over the next 2 days. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane, and thank you, Minister. Throughout the next 2 days, we're going to be using a platform called Slido. Knew that had happened. I'll let you do it, whoever did that. So you might have used Mentimeter, you might have used Kahoot, you might be familiar with Slido. At this conference, we're not asking you to put your phones away. We want you to use your phones for a couple of things. One is we have polls, and secondly, so that you can ask questions of our speakers. You can also ask questions face-to-face as we make our way through the 2 days, but you can ask a question via Slido, and certainly if you're joining us online, that's going to make it a lot easier for you to ask questions rather than sitting there frustrated that you can't. So we're going to have a bit of a practice with Slido before we get into today's first keynote speaker. Either download the app Slido, or you can visit slido.com, and you can do that on your phone or your laptop or your computer at home, wherever you're joining us from, and enter the code on the screen, QVC 2025. I can see a number of you have already taken the option to scan the code that's on the screen here. The code is also in your delegate bags, or you can click on the direct link that was provided in the info email that was sent last week. So access the conference Slido and click on QVC 2025 Day 1. Am I going too fast? Is everyone following along? Are you going to do this with your phone? Have you got it there? Yep, cool, excellent. So you can see there's Day 1 and there's Day 2, and then there's the help page for people joining online. So you want Day 1, and you should see a tab with the conference Q&A. That will remain open throughout the event, and that's where you can submit questions for the speakers, but you'll also see a tab that says polls, and that's what we're going to do right now. In the polls section, there's a practice poll. So what we want to do is find out where you're joining us from today. So type in your answer and click send. And I'm sure that you've participated in word clouds before, so we're going to form a word cloud on the screen. And I was just about to say, yes, if you just keep the spelling fairly simple and accurate. Hello, sunny Brisbane. Love the irony, that's great. So here we are, from the State Library, Meanjin, Brisbane, and Queensland State Library, Brisbane. Where else though? St Lucia, in the room, Manly, Nambour, Mackay, Miles, PCYC Bayside, Jacobs Well. Look at this. Terrific. Moreton Bay. Is that Moreton Bay Council or Moreton Bay, the body of water? I do find that confusing. Upper Coomera, Griffin. Excellent. Okay. So if anyone had any trouble with that, as Jane mentioned, the VQ staff in their red shirts can help. I can see they're standing there ready to help, and no one needs to help anyone. This is great. So that was all fairly simple. Anyone have any trouble doing that? Throughout this morning, it'd be good to get on top of it, then you know how to use it, and then you can ask questions and take part in the polls. And if you are joining us online and you have any trouble navigating Slido, just drop a question into the online delegates troubleshooting section. Okay, good. Let's move on to our first keynote address, which is the keys to creating a culture of youth motivation and engagement. And it's my great pleasure to introduce Nathan Hulls. Nathan is one of Australia's leading youth motivational speakers. He specialises in training and development for students and adults in the areas of performance psychology, positive education, emotional intelligence, motivation and engagement. He speaks to tens of thousands of people around Australia every year and is passionate about helping people understand themselves, be their best, and make a positive difference in their world. Working with high schools, universities, local and state government organisations, as well as community groups, Nathan is an expert in helping adults understand teens and teens understand themselves. Please welcome Nathan Hulls.
Who here remembers when you were a teenager? Who maybe has a little bit of a struggle remembering that? Who'd like to pretend it was only yesterday? Who feels like it was only yesterday? Awesome. So firstly, what I want to do, I don't know if you remember back in the day, but I want you to imagine, depending on how good your imagination is, I want you to imagine right now you are sitting in a school auditorium. Unfortunately, not sitting on a nice, comfortable chair. Just imagine back in the day, maybe this was your experience, but imagine back in the day you were sitting on a basketball court in a stadium on a hardwood floor. Anyone remember those days? Right, and a speaker comes out on the stage. Anyone have speakers come to your school when you're in high school? Sitting on the stage, if you're one of the boys, you're probably elbowing your mates next to each other, talking about how, this is going to suck and don't know why we have to go through this and, what's the point of this? And if you're one of the girls, maybe you're sitting there trying to keep away from the boys. They're trying to have their knee touch your knee. And anyone remember those days? And so I come out on stage. I'm the speaker. You're sitting there as the young person in your high school sitting on the hardwood floor. As I come out as the speaker, give me a wave if you've ever had a party. Give me a wave if you've never had a party. Oh, someone throw a party for that. Anyway, so who knows? If you've ever had a party, remember we're imagining, we're in high school, back sitting on the floor. Who knows? If you've ever had a party, it's a chance for you to go out and buy all of the stuff that you wouldn't normally have in the fridge or in the cupboard, right? So, you're trying to eat healthy and maybe your wife's got you on the eating plan and you have a party coming up, so you head down to the shops and you get the biggest trolley you can find and you start loading it up with all the chips and the drinks and the lollies and the chocolate and the red frogs. But even more important than that, my most favourite thing in the world is chocolate mud cake. Anyone like chocolate mud cake? Right, so you get this big sucker of a chocolate mud cake, you get all you get to the checkout, you buy all the stuff, you get home, you set up for the party. Now your friends come over, you have a great time at the party, and your friends leave, and there's a big mess to clean up. But who knows, after a really good party, aside from a mess to clean up, there's always one thing. What is there always? Leftovers, right? You make sure of it, so you buy way more stuff than you're ever going to eat. So there's leftover chips, and there's leftover drinks, and lollies and chocolate, but there was this one last piece of chocolate mud cake. So my wife and I had this party, and there was this one last piece of chocolate mud cake left over. And so I got that chocolate mud cake, I stuck it on a plate, put it in the fridge, and I saved it for myself for the next day when I got home from the office. Couldn't be bothered cleaning up. You guys are already going forward. And couldn't be bothered cleaning up, so I went to bed, got up the next day, I headed off to the office, and I'm sitting at my desk trying to concentrate on my work, but all I can think about is that last piece of chocolate mud cake waiting for me at home. Right? Trying to concentrate, trying to focus. My ADHD is going crazy. All I can think about is this last piece. Made the day go so slow. Finally gets to about 5 o'clock. I jump in the car, race home at the speed limit. Jump in the car, into the garage, straight inside, straight to the kitchen. Didn't even say hi to my wife. Open the fridge door. The man in the fridge turns the light on. I'm standing at the fridge looking for this last piece of chocolate mud cake waiting for me. It's nowhere. Right? It's not on the top shelf. I couldn't see it anywhere. It's not on the bottom shelf. Couldn't see it anywhere. It's not in the door. It's not in the drawers. I'm starting to freak out because it's really important. Starting to freak out. My wife's name is Kate. So I'm standing at the fridge. I'm like, Kate! It's not cake, Kate. It kind of sounds similar. Anyway, so she comes into the room. She kind of glides because she's an angel. And the girl's like, oh. And the boy's like, give me a freaking bucket. So she comes into the room, she kind of glides, because she's an angel. She pushes me out of the way, she's standing at the fridge for about 2 seconds. Now, you may be familiar with take a woman look or a boy look, one of those stupid phrases. Anyway, so she's standing at the fridge for about 2 seconds. Now, if we come back to the room, we're all adults now, we can thank you, the person next to you for that one. When I present this in it obviously sounds like a bit of a meaningless kind of story. When I present this in some of my presentations that I present literally in high schools or in universities or in communities, I leave that story right there and I don't actually finish the story until the very end of a 60-minute session. Now, there's some psychology around it, but I guess part of painting the picture of how do you engage the brain of a young person is through sharing stories. Through sharing metaphors, which maybe somewhat may seem a little bit meaningless and a little bit mundane and a little bit irrelevant. I'm not going to do that to you guys, okay? You can say thank you. So, there's this psychology behind opening the loop of learning, creating a curiosity around teaching a young person something. And it's not just part of teaching young people, but teaching human beings in the way that our brain works. But creating curiosity, waiting for that story to be finished, opens the loop of learning so that we are engaged in what we're listening to. My wife comes into the room, she pushes me out of the way, she opens the fridge door, she's standing at the fridge for about 2 seconds and she moves the milk. And there it is, it was on the top shelf all along. Like I said, take a woman look or a boy look, one of those stupid phrases. Now, the reason that I share this story with you is not just so we can share a story, it's not just what speakers come in and they share stories. There's two reasons I share this story with you. The reason I share this story with young people in a presentation in high school is, part of my story is that I was born with a disability. Now, bit of crowd participation. Put your arms out in front of you like this. Kind of like you're sleepwalking or about to do the Macarena. And on the count of 3, I want you to turn your forearms so your palms are facing upwards. Overachievers, I said on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, go. Right, as if I'm going to put money in your hands. Awesome, put your arms down. So I was born with a disability in my forearms where my 2 bones in my forearm, the radius and the ulna, are fused together and I have no rotation. Yeah, it's kind of weird, right? It's called radial ulnar synostosis. Now, so those 2 bones are fused together in the wrist joint, and not a huge deal, but for me growing up as a young person, the reality for me was for a long time my whole identity was wrapped around what I couldn't do. Right? My whole identity was about being born with this. My so-called friends thought that I had alien arms, so they called me ET. It's not funny, that's mean. It's kind of funny now, not so funny when you're 6. Like, I come from Mexico, Bendigo. So I flew in yesterday, south of the border, don't hold that against me. But I grew up in Bendigo, country Victoria. Now, I know you guys play a different type brand of football, but all my mates, country Victoria is all wrapped around AFL football. Anyone like AFL? Go Pies. I've lost 99% of the room. Right, but AFL, all my mates on the weekends are playing footy, AFL football. All my mates on the oval at lunchtime are playing footy. But when you're playing AFL, if you know anything about AFL, a big difference between AFL and rugby is how do you pass the ball when you're not kicking the ball? Hand pass. So there's 2 parts to the hand pass. There's the punch, and what's the other part? Holding the freaking ball. Right, so I couldn't play footy with all my mates. I couldn't play basketball. It's kind of difficult to play basketball when the ball hits you in the face more times than you can catch it. That's not ideal. Now, even now when I go to get my coffee in the morning, and I've already had 2, and I hand over my money and the barista goes to give me my change, and it's kind of like, tap and go. Right, but the reality for me as a young person, it didn't stop me from doing a whole bunch of stuff. Right, but the reality from my sense of identity, my sense of confidence, my sense of who I was and maybe what I could do and how I could contribute to the world around me was all wrapped up in what I couldn't do. Right, I was different to everyone else. I didn't even know the thing had a name until Google came along. I'm like, arms don't work properly. What do you know? Radial ulnar synostosis. And so I share this story with you, back to the story, because the first thing that I believe, a big part of my philosophy, is that young people aren't a problem to be solved or an issue to be fixed, but they're just young people on a journey of discovering who they are, where they fit, and what they have to offer the world around them. And so for me, one message, one of my big messages is that every young person, every human being has greatness inside of them, whatever you want to call that, whether you want to call that your potential, whether you want to call that your skills and your abilities, the things that make you unique. Every human being has greatness inside of them. That's kind of the picture of the chocolate cake. Right? But so many young people have stuff in the way, stopping them from being able to see the greatness within them. Part of my story was I saw my disability. I didn't see what I had to offer. Right, I was that young person sitting on that basketball court stadium floor in year 11 when a speaker came to our school and said, "You've got amazing things inside of you. You've got seeds of greatness inside of you." And I heard those words. I was that young person. I heard those words, and that allowed me to maybe go on a journey of discovering more of what I was capable of and what I had within me. There's a second reason that I share that story with you as an adult is because, like my wife, sometimes young people require someone else to come alongside them to help shift the stuff out of the way, to help them see what's within them. Now, I've heard it said that every young person is just one trusted adult away from being a success story. And whether we want to talk about, a lot of the young people that I've worked with in the past, whether it's in a juvenile justice system, whether it's in communities where there are high rates of suicide, whether it's in alternative education settings that I've worked in, or whether it's at the level of peak performance athletes, whether it's young people who want to perform at an elite level, every young person is just one trusted adult away from being a success story. Having adults come alongside them who can help shift their perspective when, particularly in these days, and we'll talk a little bit about who is this generation, but particularly in a generation where there is so much focus on this Instagram instant world where this picture of perfection is put out to us, where we see other people's stories and reels and TikToks and Snapchats, and everything is this picture of perfection. And then we look at ourselves and we look at the things that we can't do and the things that we don't have and the things that we don't like about ourselves, and we need someone to come alongside us to help create a proper picture of who we are. Does that make sense? So part of my story, is this journey of going on working with young people. But for me, like I said, I was that young person. The only reason that I'm standing here today was because as a 17, 18, 19-year-old, I found volunteer organisations who were running life skills seminars in high schools, and I'm like, I want to do that. Right from the time when I saw in year 10 and year 11, sitting on that hard basketball court floor, watching a speaker come out on stage saying, "You have seeds of greatness inside of you," I saw that not only for myself because I realised that I was looking at what I couldn't do, but I also saw something that I wanted to become. And so many of you are in positions where we have these abilities to get alongside young people, but also to help them create a picture of the potential for their future and give them experiences where they have that ability to step into becoming who they want to become. So let's have a bit of a quick look at who are these young people today. I want to read out two quotes. Now, you may have heard these before, and if you have heard these before, I'm going to ask you, where do you believe these quotes may have been quoted from? What decade do you believe these quotes may have come from? If you're aware of where they come from, just keep that to yourself till we get to the end of it. But the two quotes are as follows. "Our youth now love luxury. They have bad manners, contempt for authority. They show disrespect for their elders and love chat in place of exercise. They no longer rise when elders enter the room. They contradict their parents, chatter before company, gobble up their food and tyrannise their teachers." Lots of big words in there. Okay, just have a quick think in your own mind. When do you think that may have been quoted from? What decade? Second quote is this one. "The young people of today." Ever heard that one? Oh, young people today. These days, young kids these days. "Young people of today think of nothing but themselves. They have no reverence for parents or old age. They are impatient of all restraint. They talk as if they alone knew everything, and what passes for wisdom with us is foolishness with them. As for girls, they are forward, immodest, and unwomanly in speech, behaviour, and dress." If you've not heard these before, put up your hand. When do you think they may have been quoted from? What decade? 60s. What else? Any other thoughts? 50s, 20s at the back? 50s? 70s? Okay, so these have been attributed to Aristotle and Socrates in 300 and 400 BC. Right now, let me just say this. There is some question around the validity of them, but I found them on Wikipedia, so they must be true. Whether or not they're true is not the point. I guess right at the start, yes, this generation, Gen Zers, whatever we want to call them, teenagers, young adults, young people today, there's a whole bunch of different ways that they connect, a whole bunch of different ways that they communicate. There are a whole bunch of different experiences that they've had to walk through from a nature-nurture perspective, the journey that they've been on in terms of their developmental psychology. Yes, that has shaped them in a way. But the reality that I want to bring to us is that young people are just young people. Right? Young people aren't a problem to be solved. They're not an issue to be fixed, but they're young people who are on a journey of discovering who they are, where they fit, and what they have to offer the world around them. And that's, I guess, the opportunity that we have today as people who are working, looking to engage young people, looking to motivate young people and give them opportunities. So how do we engage these Gen Zers? What can we understand about them from a psychology perspective, from a nature-nurture perspective? Who are these young people? Number one, they are global, right? From a perspective of their understanding, from the perspective of their communication, from the perspective of how they do what they do, they connect globally. They connect with world news. They connect with people on the other side of the world. Who grew up with a pen pal? Did anyone grow up with a pen pal in another country? Wow, you were like next level. Right, but these guys have grown up with global connection, with global awareness, with an awareness of everything that's going on in Gaza, in Africa, in every other country from a good, bad, or otherwise perspective. They have this global awareness. Now, part of that can create a challenge. Who's from a regional area? Who's ever heard young people say, oh, we've just got nothing in our town? Right, when there's this global awareness and global perspective and everything's kind of way bigger and way more out there, and even they're jumping on YouTube and they're seeing people that are YouTubers and influencers making millions of dollars. There's this big picture perspective when sometimes the challenge is bringing it back to local. Anyone aware of that? So that's one of the awarenesses, but also one of the challenges that we have is how do we bring it back to a local awareness? They're digital and tech natives. They've grown up, number one, they've grown up paying for things online with your credit card. Right? They've grown up. It's not a stretch. It's not a question mark. Is this safe? Is this secure? They just do things, what they do online. Everything is communicating online. It's connecting online. It is buying things online. No, it's digital. It's native to them. It's not a question mark. And if you have to get them to write, who knows? It's harder for them to write with a pen than it is to type with a keypad or their thumbs. Okay, so being aware of this, again, one of the challenges that we face is whether it's bureaucracy. Now, let me say this. I'm aware of all of the things that we have to do as organisations to engage volunteers. And sometimes we're like, we have to do these things. Yes, you do, but how you do it can be modified. Right? Is there a way to reduce the time it takes for a young person to engage with your organisation and to walk them through the steps of becoming a volunteer? How you do it doesn't necessarily have to remain the same. The message may need to stay the same. The activity may need to stay the same. What you need to achieve as an outcome may need to stay the same. But how can you remove some of the barriers to entry for young people from a perspective of engaging where they're at, using some of the technologies that they already use, rather than, okay, this is our process. These are the forms that you need to fill out. You need to come into our office and we have to do this stuff. Is there a different way that you can do it to connect? They're quick and they're impatient. Who's noticed that? Who is also quick and impatient? Right, the more that we have, the more options that we have, the more ability that we have to get things fast. We used to, who remembers dial-up modems? Who remembers sitting waiting for a JPEG to load? Right, and now we're complaining if an Uber doesn't turn up in 3 minutes, we cancel it to try and find another one. But the other thing, obviously the awareness of that, we can look at all of this stuff and we can look at all of these characteristics and we can think, well, they need to change. No, we need to change. We need to work out how do we make it more streamlined? How do we make it smoother? How do we make the connection from acquiring a volunteer, onboarding a volunteer, engaging with a volunteer, their volunteer activities, and even part of that may be mini volunteer opportunities. There might be short projects rather than looking for long-term commitment. One of those things, I am a commitment phobe. I own a gym. Don't tell my wife that. I'm married. I own a gym. One of the businesses that I've got back home in Bendigo, and I've just bought some new equipment that needed to be drilled into the ground, and it took me 3 weeks to work out where I wanted to put it before I would be happy to drill it into the ground, because I know once it's drilled in, that's once it's drilled in. Right, but young people, they don't necessarily have a long-term perspective to think, right, I'm going to commit to this volunteer project or this volunteer role for 12 months. It might be looking at how do we create micro projects? How do we create short-term projects with short-term commitments that give them that ability to taste and see what we're doing? They're visual. Everything that they do is visual from a social media perspective, from video, media. So how are we connecting with them? How are we engaging with them from that perspective, making sure that we are going where they are? They're collaborative and interactive, right? They want to work with you. They don't want to kind of be told what to do. They want to be given opportunities to engage, whether it's leadership opportunities, whether it's ways to make decisions. One of my favourite activities, whether it's working in a local council environment, whether it's working with an organisation like yours, whether it's working in a school, is helping young people create a youth advisory group, right? Where you've got a group of young people who are given a level of responsibility to make decisions around the things that are important to them. And even more important than that, having a youth advisory group to consult when you're like, how are we going to connect with these young people? Where better to go? Yeah, you can come to me and hire me as a speaker, but I'll say go to the young people. Right, go to young people, ask young people. Some of the youth engagement activities that I've seen from councils or from government or from organisations sometimes are so tokenistic, just to tick a box to say we're engaging with the young people, when the reality is, if you want to engage with young people, ask young people how to do it. Does that make sense? It's pretty kind of common sense, I hope. They're sceptical. Who's noticed that? Because they want to try it for themselves. You might have this idea of how you're engaging with them or what you're telling them. No longer because, who grew up in an environment where you kind of just sat in school, the teacher stood at the front, they kind of read out from a textbook and you just took everything as gospel. Right now we've got every opportunity to research on Google, on Wikipedia, on every other different medium, and we can find an opinion or a piece of writing to back up our opinion on anything that we want. Who's aware of that? Who's got teenagers that you're trying to raise and they're telling you why what you're saying is wrong? Who remembers when you were a teenager and you did that too? Right, but the challenge is now we've got so many levels of information and access to information. And so part of this is, okay, that they need to change. No, we need to change. We need to engage them in a way where we can allow them to walk through the journey to try what we want them to try, to experience what we want them to experience. And again, similarly, facilitated and consultative. So young people want to be consulted in the process. They want to be a part of the journey rather than just told what to do. Here's the information. Go out and do what I want you to do. And they're also highly purpose and values driven. So who are these Gen Z? Let's just make sure I've got plenty of time on the clock. Gen Z, so they're essentially born between 95 and 2009, and now not just to restrict, what age ranges do you particularly engage with from a young youth or young adult's perspective? What's the youngest? Yell out, what's the youngest person? 17, 12? 8? Awesome. So obviously there are then some Alpha, Gen Alpha is the next. And so rather than kind of cover over 2 generations, typically after 2009, there's not a whole lot of differences. There are obviously one big thing that's happened more recently. Who remembers about 4 years ago something happened that kind of changed the world a little bit? Right now, there's some world environmental type of things that have happened over these last 4 or 5 years that have also kind of brought in some changes. But essentially, this group of Gen Z, they're visual, they're highly experiential, they want to try and see it for themselves. They learn through facilitated learning, not just being told. They want to be consulted and engaged. They're process oriented. They want to know how does it work. They're driven by purpose. And so, so much of this, I believe, we can look at it from a problem to be solved or an issue to be fixed, or we can look at it from the opportunity that it creates for volunteer organisations like yourselves, because I believe that the opportunity with young people is real, right? Number one, volunteer organisations are just 1 generation away from extinction. Think about that. There are 2.8 million volunteers in this state, but really your organisation is only 1 generation away from extinction. And so what are we doing to not just try to engage, do the same thing over and over again, like Einstein said, is insanity, expecting a different result. But what are we doing to understand this generation, to engage this generation, but then also how do we get them on the journey to become the leaders of your organisation in the future. And so, I'm hugely about succession. So 8 out of 10 of these guys report to wanting to make a positive impact on the world in their lifetime. 73% are willing to spend more money on a product if it comes from a sustainable brand, and 81% expect organisations to commit publicly to good corporate citizenship. So there's a huge element of not just we want to volunteer because we want to help, or we want to volunteer because it's a good cause, but they want to make a difference. Who thinks that's a pretty powerful opportunity that we have with this generation? And a big thing is then, righto, how do we connect with them? How do we engage them? So what motivates these young people? I guess, real quickly, what do we got? 15 minutes. Excellent. Cool. Before I go into the next step, I do just want to preempt something at the end. I've got a little... anyone familiar with ChatGPT? Okay, so I've created a GPT of me, particularly for volunteer organisations around how to engage with young people. Who thinks that might be valuable? I want to give you that at the end of this session, so stay engaged, okay? So here's my promise to you. At the end of this session, between now and then, the more engaged you are, the more responsive you are, and the more that you laugh at my jokes, then I guarantee I'll give you that ChatGPT. Is that okay? Okay, you can have it. Let's try again. So the more engaged you are, the more responsive you are, and the more that you laugh at my jokes. Yeah, okay. Cool. So understanding them is one thing. Now, in that GPT, you can literally type in, what's an organisation here? What's your organisation? Chaplain Watch. Okay, you could say, I run an organisation in Queensland called Chaplain Watch. This is my challenge. This is my problem. Give me some advice. Or you can ask a more specific question. So part of it is understanding the young people. How do they engage? But even more than that, we engage them and we get them on board and we get them as part of our organisation. Who's noticed that young people tend to drop off a little quicker than the older generation? Okay, so how do we engage them, but how do we motivate them? How do we keep them on? And look, it's almost as if I feel like you might sit there and look at these and think, righto, he's just written this for us because we're volunteers and it's telling us what we want to hear. I literally believe that the opportunity is so real with young people because of the fit. It's almost like a jigsaw puzzle, the fit between what motivates young people, what drives young people, the way that young people are wired, and what you have to offer as a volunteer organisation. Young people are motivated by positive contribution. Right? Some of the most powerful projects that I've been able to run, this is from psychology, from research around positive psychology and engagement. But some of the most powerful projects that I've been able to run are things that we call MAD projects, making a difference. Now, and that there is so much research around happiness and positive psychology and positive motivation around the ability to do something for someone else. Now, what that does from a psychology perspective, it helps young people see that they have capacity. I have something to offer someone else. I can do something that adds value to someone else. It's more blessed to give than it is to receive. From a psychology, from a motivation perspective, and young people are hardwired in this way more than any other generation before. Right? They want to engage in positive contribution. So these MAD projects, making a difference projects, they may simply be identifying a family in the community where they need their lawns mowed and they need some weeds pulled, but giving young people an ability to engage in something, a hands-on practical activity. It might be raising money for a cause. It might be doing car washes that is attached to a positive outcome where the money that's raised from a car wash goes to help fund a positive cause, where the young people are literally engaging with their hands, with their abilities, with their skills, and then that is positively contributing to someone else's cause. Does that make sense? And so, it's kind of like, I feel like we're almost coming back full circle to maybe a bit of a cultural change where the things that we want to engage with are more ground down to earth. What am I trying to say? From the perspective of maybe old school cultural values. Does that make sense? Like 50s, 60s, 70s. My grandparents grew up on a farm, right? And so that generation was, understanding the cultural values or the family values or the things that they were able to do to help and contribute, and also these other things from a passion and a purpose perspective. They will be motivated and they will be more connected and more engaged if you engage them with things that they are passionate about and find a sense of purpose in. And so part of this, for me, my passion was triggered when I saw a speaker stand on stage, and for whatever reason, they say there are two fears in life. Most people would rather be in the box than delivering the eulogy. Who would hate being up on stage delivering a keynote presentation? Who would just love it? Yeah, awesome. Cool. You guys are weird. Like me. Right? But when you find something that engages with your passion, right, with something that you're passionate about. I'm passionate about helping people discover what they're capable of. I'm passionate about helping adults understand teens. I'm passionate about helping teens understand themselves, but more than anything, I'm passionate about helping people discover the greatness that's within them. Not letting the stuff that stops them. Like I said, part of my story is this disability. And so I use that as a metaphor to literally say, stuff happens. Right? I didn't choose to be born with this condition. No, it wasn't like in the womb. I'm like, yeah, cool, I have those arms. They're the ones that don't work properly. Right? But that was some stuff that happened to me. As we go through life, a big message that I believe young people need to understand is that stuff happens. Because the lack of resilience that comes from this Instagram world of pictures of perfection, expecting, I can become Insta-famous overnight, when the reality is then they're stuck in their own little world looking at the stuff that they hate about themselves and the challenges that they have and the problems that they have. And part of my journey was engaging with a community of like-minded people where I could do what I was passionate about, but it had a bigger picture purpose because ultimately for me it led me to a career. Right? There was something connected to my future that I was doing today that allowed me to grow in that, to develop capacity, to develop skills that allowed me to connect that. Now, who's ever had one of your children say, why am I even doing this? Some sort of algebra or maths or right? Ask them if they want money. How do we connect future purpose to the somewhat mundane things that maybe we have to do? It's not all about, right, everything that I can offer this young person is going to be passionate about. Right? Volunteering isn't every activity they're not going to be passionate about it. They're not going to straight away be able to connect a sense of future purpose to it, but it's our job to help them connect what are you doing today and how can that potentially help you get to where you want to be in the future. Does that make sense? Passion and purpose. Third one, growth and development. Right? They are motivated if they see growth, if they see progress, if they see who's got one of those marks on your cupboard where you've the height over years. Right? Who thinks a young person would like to see that go down? No one would. As we get older, maybe it is going down a little bit. Right? But we want to see progress. Who's ever been to the gym? Who's gotten unmotivated by not seeing progress? And then you're sponsoring a gym. Right? Young people, more than ever, they want to know that what they're doing is progressing them towards... And look, it doesn't have to be these huge leaps forward. But if they're not able to measure that progress, if it's not visible, right? If there's not ways and things like gamification. Anyone heard of that phrase? Like gamifying progress is things like leaderboards and giving badges, like when you go from level 1 to level 2 and you get a badge and you get that dopamine hit. No, there is psychology around why is it that young people are just addicted to gaming these days? Because games are designed in a way for them to progress from level 1, which is, who knows, level 1 is easy. It might take us a few times, we die a few times, and then we get to level 2, and it's slightly harder. And there's this concept called flow. Leahy wrote a book called Flow, and it talks about when your skill or ability is matched with the challenge, you will find yourself in a state of flow. And that's when you are doing something that you're passionate about, that is purposeful, but you're progressing in a way that time disappears. And when your skill level is under your challenge level, you'll find yourself in a place of anxiety. Right? When the thing that you're trying to do, you feel like your skill isn't quite enough, then you'll find yourself in a place of anxiety. When your skill level is above your challenge, you'll find yourself in a place of boredom. So helping young people find that space of flow where their skill or their capacity is matched with the challenge that you've placed. And part of one of the programs that I run is called the coach approach, where we come alongside young people rather than being a teller or a yeller or a seller. right? Rather than telling young people what to do or yelling at them when they're not doing it right or we're trying to sell them something, we come alongside them and we coach them through it, right? One of the most powerful mentors in my world was a 76-year-old boxer named Laurie, right? As a 12-year-old going through this challenge with a disability, being bullied and being picked on and being labelled, for whatever reason, my dad, in his wisdom, thought, I'm going to take him to Laurie, and he coached me in boxing as a 12-year-old in his garage, right? He was an ex-welterweight champion, he was an ex-butcher, and at 76 years old, he would literally fall onto his concrete floor and do 10 push-ups, right? But him, 76-year-old Laurie, as a volunteer, we didn't pay him, right? His passion was connecting with young people, helping them learn the skills of boxing, but it wasn't about boxing, it was about the conversations that were had in that garage as we boxed, and some of the most powerful comments like, boxing's kind of like having £5 in your back pocket. Hopefully you'll never need it, but you just know it's there, right? He always used to say, use your noodle and not your... No, we'll leave that one alone. But this guy, 76-year-old Laurie, wasn't necessarily about, righto, how are we going to use boxing to connect to where you want to be in the future? It was about engaging with something that helped me develop capacity, that helped me develop confidence, that helped me develop some of the skills that I needed to engage in the challenges that I was engaging with, but allowed me to move forward into the world that was ahead of me. Does that make sense? We've got 6 minutes. Real world experience, making it real, right? And this is preaching to the choir, I know. Having young people volunteering, doing things that are impacting the real world around them. Community and connection is so key, so important, particularly in a space where there is so many connections, but so shallow connection, right? So many connections online. There's thousands of friends, right? Who's got friends on Facebook that you don't even know who they are? Right? Don't tell me about them. They're sending you photos. Anyway. But young people have so many connections, but so few deep connection. Right? This ability to create community around a cause, around a passion, around a purpose, around practical things that they can do and engage with helps them. Other people in our gym, one of the things that we focus on is creating community. We don't have mirrors, right? We call it the gym for people who don't go to gym. And we have so many people come in and they're like, I just didn't fit in that gym. I felt judged. The reality is people aren't judging you. They're too busy feeling like you're judging them. But we get in our heads, and young people do this every day. They get in their heads and they think, well, I'm the only one going through this problem. I'm the only one going through this challenge. And we've got this crazy issue with youth suicide because they're isolating themselves, thinking that they're the only one on the journey, when if we create community for them around them with other young people on the same journey, some of the most powerful moments we've had on some of the leadership camps we run were just young people sharing how when other people in a room like this were able to share similar sorts of challenge, they just felt heard. And so the opportunity that we have to create community for young people will help them stay on that track and continue to be motivated. How do we engage? How do we attract? Very simply, I've got 3 simple ideas. Number 1, go where they are. Don't ask them to come to you. You go where they are. Whether that's physical, right? So one of the things that I've done, I'll talk a bit about a case study, is with local councils who have engaged me to help them design and develop and create their youth advisory group. The first step that we do is we go into the local high schools. So I go in as a speaker, and I'm the motivational speaker. I get to be the familiar voice, and I go in and present to them, Decide Your Own Destiny, but it's connected to an invitation for them to then come to a youth forum, right? So we go where they are. We don't ask them to come to the council building and come to a youth forum. We just go where they are. No, they love it because they're getting out of class. They're happy to sit and not have to do maths, and they get to hear this speaker, and we share with them, positive psychology messages, my Decide Your Own Destiny message. But the whole idea is going where they are. It might be online. It might be making sure you've got videos that are going out regularly into YouTube. It might be making sure that you've got a social media manager who is sending out Reels, TikToks, Instagram. And if that's all foreign to you, you need a young person beside you to tell you what that's about. Right? For us to think that we know or we're going to do it because I've heard or I've watched a YouTube video, get young people to do it for you. Get young people alongside you, do it with them. As that coach approach would say, get them to journey with you. Tell them, this is what we want to achieve. How are we best going to do that? So number 1, go where they are. That might be YouTube, it might be Instagram, it might be Snapchat, it might be TikTok. Now, obviously, there's policies and procedures that we need to create from an organisational perspective to make sure that's all done well. But number one, go where they are. Awesome, thank you. Number two, if you're going to go fishing, and I'm not a fisherman, so don't ask me about fishing, but I'm going to use the analogy anyway. But if you're going to go fishing, you need to use the right bait, right? If we want to attract young people, we need to make sure that we are understanding those characteristics that we talked about earlier. Everyone takes a photo. Oh no, it's up there, right. We need to use those understandings and awarenesses and characteristics that we used earlier. We need to be purposeful. We need to start with why. Why is this important from a purpose-driven perspective? We need to be visual, use videos. We need to be collaborative. We need to create a youth advisory group where they become your resource for engaging the next generation. We need to be real. We need to be experiential. We need to have a growth focus. And finally, so like I said, what I did with councils, first step was we go to where they were, in schools. No, we do a 60-minute keynote presentation. At the end, we invite them to a youth forum. So then we set up a forum a month later, 6 weeks later, where they go from school on a school day. So they love it again. They get a whole day out of school. And we get young people from lots of different schools in the community, and we do a forum. And so part of the forum is more workshops around leadership. It's workshops around engagement and motivation. But it's also collaborative brainstorming around what do you love about your community? What are the biggest challenges for young people in your community? What do you think could be done to be the solution to those problems in your community, helping them to use their brains and their skills and their connections and their ideas? From that youth forum, we give them an invitation to apply for the youth advisory committee, and then they're going through a process of application to become part of the youth advisory, and then we go through a training around setting up that youth advisory. So, real quickly, who's willing to give me an extra 20 seconds? Awesome. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's about 5 minutes. Excellent. Is he going to come and get a crook and yank me off the stage? Maybe. Can I have 2 minutes? Does that work for you guys? Does it work for everyone online? Does anyone like superheroes? Right. One of my favourites is Superman. And I've got this story, this question that I use in my presentations with young people. And the question is, what would have happened if Clark Kent didn't know he was Superman? Here's what would have happened, because it happened up here. Anyway, so if we know the story, Superman, as a baby, sent from the planet Krypton, and he crash lands in a field, and he's found on Earth by John and Martha Kent. Right, so they take him home. That's kind of weird, because it's just finding a baby in a field. And anyway, don't think about that too deeply. So they take him home. They call him Clark, because Martha's maiden name is Martha Clark. They raise him as their boy. He grows up. He gets to about year 10. Right, he's sitting in the library doing his maths homework. He looks across the room and he sees this girl named Lois. His heart starts to race. Grabs his books, he races home, he Facebook stalks her. Finds out where she hangs out, what she likes to do, who she hangs out with, kind of stalkerish. But anyway, he sends her an inbox and they get chatting. They're having a conversation. She replies and they're going backwards and forwards, getting to know each other. A few weeks later, he's talking to one of her friends and he asks for her mobile number. And he sends her a text. Now, hopefully no one in this room's ever done this. But anyway, tell your kids never to do it. Sends her a text. He says, "Hi, Lois, it's Clark here. Will you go out with me?" Gutless. Anyway, no response. She ignores him. An hour goes past, 2 hours go past, 3 hours. He thinks, I've wrecked it. She's never going to respond. All of a sudden, his phone buzzes. He grabs it. It's Lois. She says, "Hi, Clark. Yes, I'll go out with you." So now they're Facebook official. They're in a relationship. So the next day at school, they're walking down the corridor, hand in hand. She's skipping. He's just walking because he's cool. And, you know, the relationship progresses and they graduate from year 10 and year 11 and year 12 and they're falling in love and the birds are chirping and the flowers are flowering and the unicorns are unicorning. And in a moment of love, he sends this text message. You might not be familiar with this one. Illy, I-L-Y, stands for I love you. And she responds, "Hello, cricket, Illy, too." It's like, oh, she loves me. So they're having this romantic date at McDonald's. And he's got a ring in his pocket and a cheeseburger in his hand. And he gets down on one knee, he puts his cheeseburger down, he gets the ring out of his pocket and he looks at Lois, looks her in the eye and says, "Lois, I love you. Will you marry me?" Lois puts her cheeseburger down. She gets up off her chair. She looks Clark in the eye and she says, "Clark, you're a bogan for asking me to marry you in McDonald's. But yes, I'll marry you. I love you." So she puts the ring on. They're now engaged and they graduate from college. And they go and work at the Daily Planet. They both wanted to become journalists. So they get married and they get the white double-storey house, the white picket fence, 2 cars, the boat, the dog and the 2.5 kids. And so they get up in the morning and they have breakfast. And they go to work at the Daily Planet, and they come home, and they watch TV, and have dinner, and they go to bed. I understand. Appreciate it. You're doing a great job. I'm not. All of a sudden, like just going through the motions, doing what everyone expected. Get a good education, get a good job, get the white double-storey house, the white picket fence, 2 cars, the boat, the dog, and 2.5 kids. But all the while within this guy named Clark Kent was the ability to be Superman. Right? He was just doing what everyone else did, everyone else expected of him. The past story of life was, that's what you do. Yet within him was this superhero with these superpowers, these abilities to jump over tall buildings in a single bound and race fast in a locomotive and fight crime and make the world a better place and wear his undies on the outside. Now, for whatever reason, he never stepped into being Superman. Yet that's what was within him, kind of like the fridge and the chocolate cake. Maybe there was stuff stopping him from discovering who he really was. And I guess the opportunity that you guys have today is to come alongside young people to help them discover who they really are. Help them discover where they fit on this planet and help them discover what they have to offer the people around them. And the theme of this conference is amazing because sometimes as volunteers we talk about what do we need done with our hands. What do we need done? What do we need volunteers to do? And that's important. But where you need to start is to inspire their mind, to engage their heart, to allow them to discover what they can do with their hands. You guys are amazing. I want you to decide your own destiny. Thank you. And you need to take a photo of that. I was going to demo it, but I've gone way over time. So if you want my GPT because you did a bit of laughing, thanks everybody. Thank you.
So, great story about Clark and Lois. See what you did there. It started with the storytelling's important, ended with a story. We're going to hold the questions to Nathan because Nathan's going to be part of the youth panel after morning tea. But if you have a question, I'm sure that you have plenty. Mine is about how do we get kids to engage locally because we need them to be engaging in our communities, and community connection, I guess, was part of the answer to that. But if you've got a question for Nathan, either put it in the Q&A now on the app, on the Slido app, or just hold on to it and you'll get the opportunity after morning tea. We're going to roll on to what we're calling Generation Impact. And this continues our theme of youth engagement. And I think the Minister might be leaving us at this point. Thank you again for being here, Minister Leahy. Thank you so much. Thank you for your support. And what a terrific initiative the inquiry is as well, for the reasons that were explained before. So continuing our theme of youth engagement, you're going to hear from two passionate change makers who will share their personal journeys of volunteering, and they're going to challenge your organisations to engage and empower the next generation of volunteers. They are David Jongkuch and Parris Smith. And we'll start with David, who's currently pursuing his doctorate in agribusiness at the University of Queensland. It's a very trendy thing to do, to go for a PhD. He's heavily involved with Pushing Barriers, which is a community organisation that provides funding, transport, mentoring and liaison to help young people from a refugee background to be included and welcomed into Australian culture and society through sport. With a refugee background himself, David has a passion for social change. He works part-time as a youth worker, supporting and mentoring young people with a refugee background. And when he's not working or studying, he regularly participates himself in soccer, and he volunteers in the community, showcasing a dedication to both academic achievement and cross-cultural community engagement. Please welcome David Jongkuch.
Morning. Thank you, Volunteering Queensland, for this opportunity. And you guys are the real MVPs. So, Nathan, whoa. Man, what a presentation. Hey. I think I'll just share a little bit of, my journey. I've been here for 7 years now. I'm originally from South Sudan. South Sudan is in chaos, but we have faith that it's going to be better one day. So I came here end of 2017 with my mom, and I'm the oldest of 9 siblings. And I was born in a refugee camp in Kenya. It's called Kakuma. And coming to Australia was a dream come true, especially after losing dad when I was 10. So I'm really grateful for my mom, and also I guess for, let's say, the aid organizations such as the UNHCR and IAM, who help us come to better places like here. I think coming to Australia is always like just a step in the right direction, because when I came here I was about 20, and I was fortunate enough that I went to a private school, and I guess kind of explains my English. But a lot of us come here with a very huge language barrier, and I think that really affects your self-esteem, because when you can't communicate, it's really hard for people to give you opportunities. So I was one of the fortunate that knows how to speak English. And I guess also leaving behind a lot of your family members and relatives as well, and starting over is not that easy. Pushing barriers. I'm a big soccer fan. I go for Manchester United. Hoo-hoo. So with pushing barriers, I met Tracy Turker. She's the president and founder of Pushing Barriers. And with Tracy, when I had a chat with her, she was working as a swim instructor, and she would go to Milpera State School, where there's a CALD program over there, and that's how she met a lot of my siblings there. And she came home one day with this, let's say, trunk full of soccer shoes, and from there, I think we kicked it off from there, and she told me about how she hopes to help young people with a refugee background get into sports, and I guess like paying for like the registration fees, soccer boots, which are pretty expensive, and so that's how Pushing Barriers started, and I was one of the beneficiaries with Pushing Barriers. So Tracy and some of her colleagues would come and pick us up in the evening, take us to soccer, bring us back. Same thing on the weekends as well. And I think when my knees gave up and I stopped playing, at least professionally, I also joined the team for Pushing Barriers to also help with mentoring, and also with the transport of the kids with their most of us with their refugee background. So I think volunteering for Pushing Barriers has really helped me with, I guess, establishing my networks. Through Tracy, I've met amazing people, and also, I guess, also with opportunities that have been presented through the networks that I have formed through Pushing Barriers. I guess also a lot of the friends that I've made by being a part of Pushing Barriers. I think that was pretty awesome. The biggest challenge that I think we face with getting especially volunteers from diverse backgrounds is that a lot of the organizations don't go to where diverse communities gather. Like say, I'm from a Dinka community, South Sudan, and we usually have, let's say, like the South Sudan Independence Day. It's really hard to see a lot of the organizations come and look for volunteers at places like that. We usually have with Queensland, I think it's this organization that works with a lot of the government with the African community, and we have like this soccer tournament. It's called AFCON, which is usually at the end of the year. When you look around, I see more police cars than organizations that are there to actually promote and get maybe, let's say, volunteers to come and participate. So I feel like that's one of the challenges that we face with getting volunteers from diverse backgrounds. I think also as a youth, when I came here, I didn't have a license. And with Pushing Barriers, let's say, when I had to do driving, I had to get a driver's license, which was open. I also had to get a blue card. And so such things like that, sometimes they could be like a hindrance from us also giving our time to volunteer for Pushing Barriers and also other organizations. But I feel like, with volunteering, it has really helped myself. And with Pushing Barriers, we keep pursuing and looking for opportunities and people who can also help us, so that we could also change the narrative of young African men from just being a gang member, but also we can contribute to this community. I think, to finish off, I'm grateful to be in Australia, and I'm looking for opportunities to also give back, and that is also make this community a better place for all of us. Thank you.
David, very much echoing what Nathan said about go where they are, whether it's young people or diverse communities, go where they are. Also supporter of Manchester United, and it's made me realise I didn't pick up on Nathan's point about supporting Collingwood. If you're still here on Sunday, the unfurling of the Premiership flag will be taking place at the Gabba when the Lions play. Parris Smith. Where is Parris? She was sitting she's... here she... making the grand entrance. Okay, it's okay, don't have to race. Parris is an inspiring educator and community leader whose journey has been shaped by resilience. While living with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, a condition that affects mobility, Parris has dedicated her life to empowering others. Her volunteer work began with Rosie's, sparking a passion and commitment to others that has only grown over the years. As chair of RYLA 9640, which is the Rotary District 9640 Youth Leadership Awards, she transformed that program to be more inclusive and impactful, broadening its reach across the region. In her role as Vice President of Rotary Youth Leadership Awards Oceania, she also played a key part in initiatives like the Elevate Leadership Program. Her dedication to Rotary and volunteering has been recognised with honours, including the Paul Harris Fellow Award, RYLA Leader of the Year for Oceania, and finalist in Youth Volunteer of the Year last year. A teacher of French and music who has studied 7 languages, Parris continues to inspire through her kindness, expertise, and unwavering commitment to making a difference. Please welcome Parris Smith.
After my wonderfully graceful entrance down there, thank you for your wonderful introductions. I really appreciate it. Good morning, all. It is a privilege to be here today for this year's Volunteering Queensland Conference. As you heard, my name is Parris Smith, and I was a Youth Volunteer finalist for 2024. I have been volunteering since I was 15 years old. For the past 6 years, I've been involved in RYLA, as was mentioned. RYLA stands for the Rotary Youth Leadership Awards, and it's a week-long camp for 19 to 29-year-olds to develop their leadership abilities and presence in the community. Within RYLA, I have managed and successfully led camps with 15 to 20 young adults, creating life-changing experiences for over 50 participants annually. This has given me the opportunity to inspire, empower, and ignite a passion for volunteering in young people. As a young person in the volunteering sphere myself, I've learned firsthand what inspires my generation to volunteer. I want to share some insights today on how your organisation can be the catalyst for the future of volunteering. This is through embracing and promoting the presence of young people. Specifically, I'll focus on 3 key strategies: avoiding pigeonholing, maintaining clear communication and flexibility, and recognising how volunteer programs can intersect and benefit one another. Let's start with a quick show of hands. How many of you would immediately consider a young person to be the best candidate to manage your social media or other things and keep you updated on the latest trends? Show of hands? Pretty much everyone in the room. It's a really fair assumption to make, and most of the time, it's true. But consider, does that mean that every young person has the skills, or better yet, the desire to want that role? Not necessarily. Take me, for example. I'm a young adult, a young person, and I am chronically online, as some would say. One would think that I can ace social media simply because I'm on it, right? Nope, TikTok and Insta just ain't my thing. While I love the brainstorming and the creating of content, the thinking about it side, the actual making side of social media, it's just not my thing. I don't enjoy it. It doesn't spark joy in me to do that. But it brings me to the concept then of pigeonholing. So that's stereotyping your volunteers and placing them in roles based on assumptions rather than their actual skills and interests. At Ryla, I organise roles into different portfolios. One of our portfolios is the marketing portfolio. That includes posting and creating social media content. Instead of assigning roles for all of our portfolios based on age or expected or perceived expertise, we asked our volunteers to list their skills and rank their portfolio preferences, explaining why they would be a good fit. While not everyone gets their top choice, as it's inevitable, this process helped us to discover some hidden talents and empowers our team members to contribute where they feel most passionate. The key takeaway: assumptions limit potential. Clear communication unlocks it. Speaking of communication, this is where many organisations might struggle to engage young people. The biggest challenge that I've found: young people don't know where to find us. For example, when I first got involved in Ryla, I had no idea what Rotary was. Do we have any Rotarians in the room today? A couple? I'm ashamed to admit perhaps now, I thought Rotary was just for old people. I now know otherwise, I promise. But I thought that it was just for old people, and I didn't know the opportunities that it could present, especially for many people under 30 and 19 to 29-year-olds, which is where I was involved directly. Our program relies heavily on word of mouth and social media. I'm assuming many groups here would also be the same. But imagine how much more impact we could have if other organisations helped to share our message. An example: at Ryla, our team chooses a charity to support every year. We donate our fundraising money and raise awareness of that charity. Through this initiative, our participants have been introduced to many incredible organisations, like Orange Sky. Anyone here for Orange Sky? Yep, a couple of people. We've also had Rosie's. Anyone here for Rosie's? Share the Dignity and Defenders for Hope. These are amazing organisations, and many of our participants have gone on to volunteer for these organisations after Ryla, which just extended that ripple effect of service. This highlights a crucial point. Volunteering does not exist in isolation. By amplifying each other's work, we can create even more opportunities for young people to get involved. One way that that's already happening is through micro-volunteering. Some of you may have heard the term. Nathan mentioned it briefly as well. Micro-volunteering is short, flexible, skill-based opportunities that allow young people to contribute in ways that fit with their busy lives. Whether it's digital advocacy, peer mentoring, or community-based projects, micro-volunteering ensures that young people, regardless of their circumstances, can participate. As organisations, we need to remember that volunteering isn't about a competition. We're all here to do the same thing in the end, ultimately. It's about our collective impact. When we work together, we build a stronger and more connected society. This brings us to the question, though, of where to share our message beyond our organisation so that young people know what we're about. Then you won't be stuck like I was, not knowing what Rotary was or who these Rosie's people were. If you want to attract more young people to your organisation, consider expanding your reach and going to places that young people are. It was mentioned before, and I'm going to say it again because it's so crucial. Some of these ways include schools and universities. We've discussed high schools and going into the place where the kids are forced to listen, but consider as well universities. There are many clubs and initiatives there where students are trying to get involved in their community, but they don't know how. Some of them are wanting to be presidents of their clubs, but they don't have that support to take that next level. You need to tell them what more they can do, offer them that opportunity. Consider social media and online platforms. There are community Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups, and university forums, which are great places to promote these opportunities. Consider as well collaborating and cross-promoting with other organisations. Sharing volunteer databases, cross-promoting initiatives, and working together at events can help increase your visibility to young people. Volunteer in Queensland has already taken a great first step, and they create this database of opportunities that are available and post it quite frequently on their socials. By working together to promote these opportunities, we can expand our reach and visibility. We can attract more young people into our organisations, and we can encourage them to stay engaged, creating a ripple effect of long-term volunteer involvement. The idea of communication, embracing multiple opportunities, and challenging assumptions has been central to my own volunteer journey. Personally, my volunteering journey has never been confined to just one organisation. It started in high school with Rosie's. Then, once I graduated, I moved on to Ryla 9640, which was my district's Ryla program. They're based in Gold Coast and extend all the way out to Goondiwindi and further south into New South Wales as well. At the same time as volunteering with Ryla, I was volunteering with university clubs. I was a founding member of a Rotaract club, and many more. I've contributed to Rotary projects, volunteering from Brisbane to Tamborine Mountain to Ballina. And now I'm currently serving as the Vice President of Ryla Oceania. There, I empower Ryla alumni and other young professionals to develop and execute their leadership skills on an international level. Through each of these experiences, though, I wasn't just volunteering. Each experience shaped me in a different way, expanding my perspective, strengthening my skills, and deepening my commitment to service. More than that, I was inspired by the people around me, people like here in the room today. The mentors who guided me, the peers who shared my passion, and the communities that welcomed me. Their dedication and stories inspired me to keep growing and find my own place in this network of changemakers. Volunteering wasn't just about what I could give, it was about the connections I formed and the lessons I carried forward. In conclusion, promise, volunteering is not about just giving. It's about growing, discovering, and becoming a part of something bigger than ourselves. My journey from when I first started volunteering to now has been a testament to the power of embracing opportunities, challenging those assumptions, and fostering clear, open communication. And that's what we must offer the next generation of volunteers: the chance to express themselves, develop their unique opportunities, and be part of something meaningful. Today I've shared how important it is to avoid pigeonholing, to collaborate and communicate, and to see the collective power of our shared work. The message I hope you take away is simple: inspire, empower, ignite. It's not just a call to action. It's the roadmap for the future of volunteering. If we inspire young people to engage, empower organisations to support them, we will ignite change for a more connected society. Thank you.
Well, there's that theme that's been coming through all morning again: go where they are. They're not going to come to you. Go where they are. Okay, we're going to take a break for morning tea. If you're following along the program, we're a little bit behind schedule, but that's okay. I suggest that we resume at 5 minutes to the hour. So we're going to take 15 minutes. You've got a challenge during morning tea. Morning tea is going to be served. You just go out through this door and it's on the Queensland terrace. On the back of your lanyard card, name tag, you'll notice that you have a particular colour V. Your challenge, if you have the time, is to find someone with the same colour V as you and find out what their first ever volunteer experience was. And for those of you who are joining us online, you'll find a Slido poll called Morning Tea Challenge, and you drop your answers in there. Okay, enjoy morning tea, and we'll get started at 10:55.